very exciting. Thank you so much for reaching out. I've done 3 podcasts today.
Really?
Yes.
Really? So your own, or like you were on someone else's?
No, this is the 3rd one I'm going to be on somebody else's.
That's crazy. Thank you so much
So,
for saying yes. Like, it means a lot.
No, I know how I started. So I know I know how much it means. So thank you very much for having me.
What's your story? Like, how did you get started on what you're doing today?
So do you want me to give a brief background on what I do, just in case there's some people out there who don't
absolutely.
know? So I run and own a mental performance agency. So what we do is we specialize in brain performance. We do anything from, we've got a brain lab over in Tribeca in New York City, and we basically teach people how to rewire their brain so they become more powerful, more unstoppable, and be able to live the life that they want. We used to work primarily with sporting teams and high-level athletes. Now we're expanding out. I've got 5 coaches and 5 staff members, and what we're doing now, it allows me to go now into organizations like PwC, the big 4 banks, and go in and teach our teachings to their teams.
How cool! So how did
I get started? That was the question.
Yeah.
Look, I was a triathlete back in my day. I say back in my day so often because it feels like it was such a long time ago. A professional triathlete for Australia. So that's where I learned everything there is to know about elite athleticism. I was one myself, and I truly understood back then, what it's like to have discipline, to have rigor, to take instruction from a coach, to work in a team environment, to put your heart on the line. I was training 40 hours a week, 3 times a day. It was really, mentally, physically, emotionally exhausting. And I had one goal in mind, and that was to go to the Olympics. And so that's how I started to understand more about athleticism. Now, 2 weeks prior to going to Beijing in 2011, I think it was, I got hit by a car traveling at 100 kilometers an hour. So that, back then it was everything to me. I felt like I'd lost my entire life. I snapped a lot of bones in my body. I was out cold, and I was told that I may not walk again, let alone run or do a triathlon. And I was really determined to do so. So I did everything I could from a physical perspective, and I started to understand more about the brain back in 2011 and how I can change my brain to get me back into the Australian team. So I did that. At the time, I had my degree, and then I went and did a Master's of Mathematics and Neurology. So I started to understand neuroscience, and look, it just started from there. Crazy journey.
Once you started studying about the brain, that is when you understood that how much power it holds, and so many people are like unaware of it.
Absolutely. When you learn about the brain from I've been harping, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I've been harping on a lot right now about education is free. So once I started to learn about what the brain is, how it's capable, I then became my own student. So I don't teach anything that I haven't done. So I understand the pathway for elite athletes because I was one. And now with brain, I started hacking my own brain and looking at the data-driven results from it and understanding what I could achieve by utilizing my own methodologies. So that's when I truly understood, wow, the brain is unbelievable. If you can train it, it expands, it decreases, you can do whatever you want. You can actually manipulate your entire, I believe, destiny by training your brain.
So what was something that you were doing? Was it like affirmations? Was it writing down your goals?
Yeah, look, from a lower perspective, yes, and I believe that everybody has the ability to change their brain and their neural circuits by doing certain things, at-home activities like meditation, like affirmations. I call them power statements, like visualization and imagery. But what we do in the lab, we don't just do that. We also use neurotechnology. So we hook up brain scanning equipment to somebody's brain to understand how they're, what type of brain waves are firing when they're thinking different things. And that allows us to understand the athlete and understand, what triggers them and why they are who they are today.
I see. How did you find out about GaryVee?
How did I find out about GaryVee? That's very interesting. So when I was younger, I think it was back in 2013, I was working in Australia because I'm from Australia, Sydney, Australia. Australia's fastest growing company. We were an education company selling 1 year entrepreneurial programs. And the marketing manager, who now lives here in New York City, working with the MBA, he introduced me to GaryVee and said, "You've got to read this book." He bought me the Jab, 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 Right Hook book. And I said, "What is this?" And he said, "This guy, his name's GaryVee, he's unbelievable." I was like, "I don't really know, like, Instagram wasn't as big. It was like, whatever." And so I just started following him, and it was from there that I was introduced to him, and that's when I knew him. But I didn't meet him until I came to New York City. Back in 2017, I met him. We had a meeting at his office, and then it just kept spiraling from there. I went back to Australia. We had a FaceTime chat, and then I came back here, had another meeting, and then I recently met with Claude Silver, his head of HR, his heart officer, and yeah.
I see. So you guys have worked together and everything.
No, we haven't worked together. I've just met with them.
Oh, I see. So how did you end up in New York from Australia?
Wow, that's a very big journey. I came to New York in 2017. I was with Red Bull, and we went to, I flew from Sydney to Australia. The head of high performance globally for Red Bull was Australian, and we knew each other, and he invited me to this 3-day event in Malibu. I took some time off work, and so I went to LA, spent, a week there with the athletes, and then my friend actually said, "I'm going to New York. Would you like to come?" I thought, oh my gosh, I've never been to New York. So I came to New York, and it was just by chance. And this is why I think that no matter where you are in life, you're always, whatever it is, it always puts you where you were meant to be. I ended up doing a workshop for the week that I was here in New York with a boxing company, and they were pretty big back then in 2017, and I just went from there. It went viral. I started picking up a lot of clients, and I had to come home, and I officially moved here July last year.
How cool. How different has it been, like, transitioning from like your home country to like another place?
Oh, look, I'm still adjusting. My body is still adjusting. In Australia, I drive a car. It's nothing like that here in New York City. Are you based in New York?
No. I'm in India.
You're over in India. Okay, you might want to cut that out. Wow, that's amazing. So based in New York City. So in Australia, I had a car, and here in New York City, I'm catching the subway everywhere. So I'm walking anywhere between 5 to 10 kilometers a day, whereas in Sydney, I wasn't walking at all. Yeah. And the culture's different. The vibe is different. The people are different. It's been very hard to adjust, but I'm still getting there. Everyone says, all the Australians that I meet here say that your first year here is the worst and the hardest.
But is it like a good difficult, or is it like a bad difficult for like adjusting?
Well, look, I'm not sleeping as much. Look, it's, it's the whole thing, like moving to a different country, getting furniture, getting tables, getting a whole new apartment where you don't know the system, where you don't know where to go and buy things. You don't know, the supermarkets here are different. Yeah. Life is different. Here they're still accepting checks, for example. So finances are different, and everything it's just hard. And then trying to have a relationship from Australia to New York City, with my family, it's very hard to communicate with them when they're 16 hours ahead of New York.
Yeah, I see. Because like one of my biggest goals is to move to LA, and it's very overwhelming and very intimidating to move from like one place to the other, and then the people and all of that. So I thought I'd ask you.
That's fantastic. What are you planning to do if you move there?
Just work for free. One of Gary's biggest advice is, like, I just got done with school, and I was still figuring it out. What is it that I gravitate towards? What is it that I'm good at? And I couldn't really do it. But in the meantime, I was like just documenting my journey on like YouTube with vlogs, with doing podcasts, and like just kind of building relationships and building like kind of expanding my network from back here to there, whether it was people in LA or like different parts of the world, right? And I went to work for free, so there are people that I look up to and I admire, but it was difficult to reach them, so I started networking people around them and kind of like learning and understanding. So eventually I could do that. So that was like my biggest one of the reasons to move there.
Well, I think you're on the right path. Just keep going. You're very young.
Thank you. So one of the questions we ask everyone on the podcast is, are you happy?
Yes. Look, I think you look at happiness and you think, I don't think anyone would say, oh, I'm not happy. I think I think happiness is I truly believe, and this is maybe the science and mathematician inside me, that you don't just wake up and you be happy and you're just happy. I think that it takes, it's a deliberate thing. So you have to generate happiness, just like you have to generate motivation. And to generate happiness, you have to do the things every single day that make you happy, and move away from the things that make you unhappy. And if I look at my life, that's what I do all day. If I'm in a relationship, and this is even in business, romantic, friendship, if that doesn't make me happy, then I walk away, because if I stay there for a reason that's unknown, then I'm going to be unhappy. So I can say that every single thing that I do every day is, my philosophy is, I try and stay in the present moment. And when you're in the present moment, I think that you can't. I think you can't be unhappy.
I see. Very interesting, because I ask everyone this because I struggle a lot with it, and my answer would always be like, it's yes and it's no. It's yes because like I'm super grateful for like my parents, and like we have a roof over our head and things are good otherwise, you know. But no, because I always feel like I'm so unfulfilled and I have so much to give, and I haven't been able to tap into it, you know. So I feel like kind of in a box and just
When
waiting
you
for
say
that.
that you haven't been able to tap into it, I think that if you change your language around and start to believe that you can tap into your full potential anywhere you are, and be fulfilled anywhere you are in the world, it becomes down to who you are and what you want. There's two master lessons in life. It's the art of achievement, it's the art of fulfillment, and the science of achievement. And if we get the two mixed up, then we think that we're unhappy. But you can be out there achieving everything. Like right now, we can achieve things. That's like you've achieved putting your podcast out. You've achieved going and getting a meal with your friends. It's an achievement of some kind. Doesn't matter what level it is. But the art of fulfillment is really understanding who you are, what you want, why you want it, and really get about the business of getting it. And then I think fulfillment comes in so many different aspects, and it doesn't come in a form of anything material. It comes from within.
Yeah, I struggle with that because I feel like there are a lot of instances where, like, I'm not depressed or anything, like, I'm a happy person otherwise, but I feel like there are very small instances where I'm like, yeah, I was happy here. You know, like, it's not long, it's very quick, very short lived. When there are things where events where you, like, when I have a good podcast, I'm super happy and thrilled, and then it goes back down again, you know, like, life, like, I wouldn't say in the majority of it, it's not happy. Why is it that I wake up in the morning and I'm not excited? And I thought that, is it everyone? Like, are people happy in general, or
That's something, instead of I don't look at other people and think, well, are people happy? I think about myself, and I think if I wake up in the morning and I'm not happy, I deconstruct that. Why am I not happy? And you find your truth somewhere if you're willing to sit there long enough, if you're willing to sit in silence for long enough and find out what's wrong. And generally what you'll find is that the thing that's making you unhappy per se first thing in the morning is something that happened in the past, because our brain is a record of the past. Every single thing, every experience, every emotion you've ever had has been imprinted in your brain. And if you wake up and you focus on that, you become unhappy. Instead of waking up and focusing on what's your morning routine, and let's focus on living in the future or the present.
Yeah.
That lights you up and makes you excited.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot of like living in the future and not in the present. You know, like I need to do so much, but my progress is like so little, and I guess just being caught up in that. Yeah, absolutely. So, what was your journey like building up your business that you're running today?
What was it like? Draining mentally. It was hard. I took a lot of risks, and I also did a lot of stupid things. But I think that the one thing that brought it to where it is self-belief and persistence, because in our day and age you've got to promote yourself in your business, which means you really have to believe in the product, which obviously I do. You've got to live it, breathe it, but you've also got to have the determination and persistence, because you get a lot of no's. You knock on a door, they slam the door in your face, and I got a lot of that here in New York City. Of course, I didn't know anybody, but I started in Australia, and it was a very different world there. And then I basically had to start from scratch here in New York City. So it was tough, and my business model has changed. It always changes. We always iterate it to stay current in the market. So it was hard.
Listening a lot of no's from clients, potential people that you wanted to work with.
Clients? No, sorry, not clients, because my clients seek me more so with partnerships. More so, even when we try and get guests on the podcast, We get a lot of no's, but we get more yeses. So it's a win-win.
I see. Same. Like I have to like DM like 20 people to get like one yes. So it's all good.
That's what it's
Yeah.
like.
So what would be, you would say, one of the biggest things you've learned building up your business? So from the moment it was an idea that you wanted to do something in this till the time you really like establish something that's an ongoing machine now.
I think one thing is I had to trust myself and stop taking advice from people who haven't experienced it. You know, when you go to your friends for advice and they're working in a 9-to-5 job and taking their advice on board, and that baffles me when I look back into my earlier days. But my biggest experience would definitely be relationships. I think it's really important to cultivate relationships over a long period of time. And in business, everything is a relationship. And it's like dating. You don't just shake someone's hand and get into bed with them. It's like business. You don't shake someone's hand and ask for their credit card. You have to build a relationship with them in the hopes that in the end, it's just like Gary says, jab, 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 right hook. And that's how I'm building my reputation and relationship here, which is why I'm always willing to give back to, I know where you were, I know where you are now, because I was there. I started my podcast 2016, and it was the same thing.
2006, that's so early. Like, I feel like that time, not a lot of people knew, like, what podcasts were and
No.
stuff. How did you get into your podcasting thing since, like, back then?
I just started it. GaryVee told us to start it.
Really?
So I did. That's all I did, yeah.
That's amazing. And you just started hitting up people, like, on Instagram and stuff?
Well, that was back then. I had a lot of people in my network, a lot of athletes who were willing to do it because it wasn't a big thing back then. But now it's a big thing, and you've got to get even bigger guests now.
Yeah.
So I think I just went about it. I just was DMing and introducing myself.
Yeah. Do you enjoy it? Like, do you enjoy having conversations with people?
I love it. It gives me a lot of strength when I interview people. It gives me life. And if I dare say that if I could do it full time or have a team GaryVee, which I hope I will, I'd probably be doing that.
How cool. And what would you say one of the biggest things you've learned, like, in life, now that you've had so many experiences, moving to a different country, building a business, something that you've learned that you didn't know in your early stages?
2 things. To not dwell on the past. I think things that stop us from achieving what we want is we tend to live in the past and blame the past and dwell on it and why me, and look, this is why I'm here today because this happened in the past. And I used to do that a lot. I used to dwell and dwell and dwell, and it would really stop me from moving forward. That's one thing I've learned about life. Second thing would be that not everything is as it seems. And we're living in a day and age where Instagram is a highlight reel, and we're celebrating only our successes online. And what can happen if we're mentally weak is we can look at Instagram or Facebook and we can look at somebody else's life and believe that they're living the perfect life, and it gets us down. And I've had enough life experience to see the other side of almost everybody, because as a coach, you get to know people. Yeah. And as a coach, I've had people that have been with me for 5 years, and you see people who are portraying their lives as this, the most amazing couple in the world, or the most amazing, they look so happy, but inside they're crumbling. They've got the worst marriage. They hate each other. They're broke. They're this. Nothing is what it seems. So I think nothing else truly matters in life other than how happy and aligned you are. The more aligned you are with your purpose, the more on point you are, the better you are as a wife, a husband, a daughter, a coach, and not a lot else matters. You can't really produce great results until you find that place. That's why people go on these self-discovery journeys. That's why relationships break up, because people feel like they don't know who they are. And I think that's the one thing I learned. Instead of focusing on everybody else, before I moved here, I actually went on a 10-day silent retreat. I refused to move and start a new life in a country where I didn't have a lot of things clear in my head. And I suffered at that retreat, 10 days of no talking and no eating sugar, no drinking coffee. It was very, very hard. But these are the things that you do. You suffer to be able to be greater.
But then, did that benefit you somehow, like now looking back, those 10 days?
Oh my God, immensely. I'm so grateful that I went through that. Just like I'm so grateful that I suffered through training, through the bike accident. I've lost a lot of money with investing, but I've gained a lot of money. I think everything I've achieved and seen and experienced have led me to where I am today.
Talk about like since
Yeah.
the time you had the idea of doing it, since you're very like, I don't know, when it actually became like a business, the early stages, like what happened? How did that idea become like a real thing?
I was asked that today on another podcast that I did. I literally looked back in time, and when I studied the brain, I thought, imagine if the brain could become athletic. And that's just how it started. I thought, what does it mean if a brain was a person and it could be athletic? Well, I mean, we'd train it like in the gym with muscle, just like a muscle, you train it, it would become bigger. If it becomes bigger and stronger, you're going to become more resilient. Your emotional awareness is going to be stronger. You're going to be able to have a better mindset. So I thought, great. So therefore, the mind lives inside of the brain. And our philosophy at neuroathletics is the mind is what the brain does. We get you to perform better, think faster, and live longer. So I just started thinking, well, how does the brain become athletic? And that's how it started.
How cool. And you experienced that first with yourself because you started seeing better results and you thought that, wait, I can do this for other people as well.
Correct.
And is it true that, I remember I heard in a movie, I'm not sure if it's true, it says that an average person does not use their brain more than 4%.
That's not true at all. I've got on my Instagram a post that debunkles the 10% myth, because the real truth is we use 100% of our brain 100% of the time. These myths that are out there saying that we only use 4% or 10% really needs to be demystified.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that. Because is it true that I used to believe that everyone has the same brain. Like, no one has a bigger, smaller, better brain. It's just that how much you exercise it, you can apply yourself more. Like the more experience you have, you can get better results.
Well, look, we've all got the same structures of the brain, excluding injuries and, defects. But I think that the thing that changes our brains is what's been imprinted in them and how are they wired. There's this thing called neuroplasticity, meaning that it's the brain's ability to rewire itself, and we can rewire our brain via thought alone, via actions, emotions, feelings. So we all experience different things, so therefore the network in our brain would all be different.
And do you believe in things like affirmations, which says that your thoughts can become like things?
Yes, I make sure that every single athlete that comes on board with us has a morning routine, and within that morning routine, embedded in it is, we don't call them affirmations, we call them power statements. And the power statements are there, I am the best, I am the greatest. It really rewires your brain. It puts yourself in a physically powerful state before you even leave the house. So I really believe in them. I do them myself every day.
I remember doing them a little bit, and I've seen a little bit of effects, like even though you might believe that you might like be full of self-doubt and stuff, but irrespective, if you keep on doing these affirmations, that there comes a time where you actually start believing them, and then your action starts because you are who you say you are, so your actions then start manifesting of like, I'm the best, and I'm a champion, instead of like, who am I to like have big dreams.
Yes, that's all comes down to self-belief, self-talk. You've really just got to put it in there, put in the work, and really believe it.
Yeah, I was recently studying about quantum physics, which talks about that everything essentially is a vibration, because the smallest particle in us are like atoms, and a table is made up of atoms, and we are made up of atoms, and if you break down atoms, they're made of vibrations, and therefore that's when things like thoughts work. So if you have a dream, you're sending out certain kind of vibrations and certain kind of signals. And if your dream is like, for me, it's to move to LA, then LA is also then essentially a vibration, and then you try to align yourself with your goals, or whether something as materialistic as like a car or a place or something you want to become. So what would be your thoughts on that?
I love that. I've been studying that now as well, and I like that we call it quantum physics and not the law of attraction, or the secret, because I don't know if there's too much science behind it, but I do love that. I think that I do that as well. You put out the vibrations, and neurologically speaking, we have the ability, once we're close to somebody, to match up our vibrations and also with our heart rhythms as well, not just our brains. So I think that whatever you put out there into the universe, you align with it somehow, and I believe in that too. I really want to get more into that and reading that.
Yeah, because I kept hearing it, and it's because once you read things like The Secret and things like that, you start thinking it's magic and not fully understand it. But once you really get into like the proper details of it, I feel like you start to understand that you as a human being have so much of power and you're not so defeated, even though no matter how like your circumstances at home or your reality might seem. So I love that it gives you a sense
Absolutely.
of power to
Yeah.
attack what you want.
Yes, 100%. I think you're doing everything that's right. I think you seem very like a go-getter. You're young, you're enthusiastic. You already know who GaryVee is. I think you're definitely ahead of the mark. You just got to keep believing in yourself, be persistent, and don't look at other people and think, what are they doing? Why can't I do it? And things like that.
Thank you for saying that. You know, yesterday it resonated with me so much, like not to take advice from people who are and not doing anything close to what you're doing. Not because like you're better than them, but your lane is just different. And my lane is so different, you know, like I'm trying to tackle social media and network through like Instagram DM and trying to reach LA and work for free. Something that's not very traditionally understood here, at least. And I keep getting like, not backlash, but everyone's like, think this through, you know. I chose not to do formal education and jump right into what I really wanted to do. And from everyone around me, it's like people start thinking like I'm delusional. They're like, you know, be practical, like we support you, but things like that. And I remember someone telling me like being practical is for losers and is for cowards, you know, like I was like, when I was really reading about the brain so much because I was like, why can't I do what I admire people who do that well, you know? And I was like, when all of
I think, sorry, I'm interrupting, but I
Yeah.
think that you've got to be careful for who you listen to, and people who tell you anything other than you can and you will, and they're there to support that, they're putting their own beliefs and their own experiences and their own perspective of the world on you, and you don't need that.
Yeah, I feel like people kind of start projecting their fears on you, and they're like, you know, you're too young. And I'm like, right, that gives me a little bit of an edge. I feel like it's not such a disadvantage. And then I was just discussing, like, the visa thing is going to be such an issue, right? So I went to someone who was older than me just to, like, talk to them. I was like, you know, how do I go about it? And things like that. And we went into this whole conversation of me. I wouldn't rethink what I'm doing, but once you start hearing so much from all these different people, like be practical, then I was like, wait, am I like delusional? Like, do I not know what I'm doing? Am I like end up gonna failing and just things like that? So, and since yesterday, I remember like just reading twice on like Instagram and now hearing from you, like, don't take advice from people who are not doing what you want to do, you know?
100%. You've got to find someone who's been there, done that, and really, there's somebody else in the world who's in your position and who's moved from India to LA. You just need to find them and ask them to mentor you and find out what they did to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like the most traditional thing is like going to school and going to like a 9 to 5 job and doing all sorts of things, right? And this is something
100%.
this is something different, right? So people can't wrap their heads around it. And I feel like then that's what we're here for, right? Like progression, and someone's gonna do it different, you know? Everyone can't like, just keep being in the cycle of doing something what
Yes,
everyone's doing.
100%.
So what would be your advice to like young people? Like just young people who are like just working hard and trying to achieve their dreams. Anything that you would want to say to them?
Learn. I think the more that you experience, the more that you hustle and learn, the better you'll be. And that doesn't mean just sit at home and not go out, experience. Don't get bogged down in thinking that you need to know what you want, and just experience. Go and work, find out if you do know what you want. Go find a person who's doing it and work for free. Work for free, because that's going to be your internship. Work on the side if you have to. However you're going to support yourself. Work for free, drench yourself in that market, find out everything there is you need to know, and then start producing content, put out your work, and then you'll get to know the market if you're going to build a business. And most importantly, spend time with yourself. Stay quiet, stay not that much on social media, and just, you know, examine your mind and everything every day. Like, become your own student. Yeah.
I did that a lot, you know, just staying alone. And I feel like when you're alone for a long, long time, when you're actually at a place where you're just staring at the wall, and I feel like very less people do that because now you constantly have your phones or games that you constantly like your attention's stuck somewhere. But I remember being in a place
Yes.
where I was just staring at the wall and I'm like, my mind is like absolutely clear. And that was the time when I started getting so in tune with myself, you know, like just reflecting back on
Yeah.
my actions, reflecting on things I'm reading, and thinking that, because I feel like all of the answers, we are the people who only know, you know, like what makes us happy. Even if I feel like I don't know right now, but if you spend
Mm.
enough time with yourself, you start figuring out, like, okay, you know, like your gut feeling, that intuitions that you have, I feel like you start communicating with your own self. And that's when you
Mm.
start making like the absolute correct, best decisions for you. So I really
Mm-hmm.
believe that
Absolutely.
spending a ton of time with yourself.
Well, look, I've loved this. I think that you're amazing. I'm excited to see your growth. If this is going to go on, I don't know where you're going to put this, if you put it on YouTube, but definitely tag me. Come and find me on
Absolutely.
Instagram. And I'd love to say hello to everybody that watches it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. One last question I had to ask you. So, was
Yes.
there any place where you felt like this is the biggest risk I'm taking? I am so fearful and this is
Yes.
just going to come on my face. And what happened after that?
I did it anyway. But like I said, it was very emotional. I mean, I moved my entire life to a country where I know nothing about. I did not know a single person in this city. I didn't even know what New York City was. But I did it. It was scary. It was very scary. Leaving my parents was very scary. And I mean, it's worked out, but it's not easy. It's not like I came here and it's like, ooh, you know. I just know that I didn't set myself up to think that anything was going to be easy. I always knew that I have to put in the work on every level, and I just did it. I believed in myself. But there's been instances like investing in companies that have not worked out. So you just have to deal with them. When they come, take the hits and don't dwell.
So, moving to New York was like one of the biggest things, like making friends and stuff.
Yes, not just making friends, but yeah,
I
that
see.
was actually the easiest thing to do here.
Really?
Because I'm very, I can meet friends. I've made a family here now, but just the everyday things that make it hard.
I see. Thank you so much, because now
Yes.
I feel like I'll be moving, and then I was just kind of trying to talk to every single person who did that as well, and just trying to, like, it's not that big of a deal, you know, I'm not gonna die. Things
The
eventually
thing
will
is, you
work
can
out.
always fly back home. It's not a big deal. You can always fly back home and redo it again. And you're so young. But no, on that note, I wish you the best of luck. And if you ever need anything, you just reach out to me. You know where I am.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming today, and let me know if I can add
Thank you.
value in any way. And
I definitely will. Enjoy your night.
thank you. Bye. See you.